There is a goddess who looked into the face of her husband and rotted before his eyes, cursing humanity with death for all eternity. And you have never heard her name. We think we know mythology. We think it begins and ends with Zeus throwing lightning bolts, with Thor swinging his hammer, with Anubis weighing hearts in the Egyptian afterlife. But these are the myths that were packaged, sanitized, sold to us through textbooks and Marvel films. The real mythology, the kind that kept our ancestors awake at night, the kind that explained why we suffer, why we die, why we sacrifice everything for love or power or meaning. That mythology was never meant to comfort us. It was meant to transform us. Tonight, we journey beyond the borders of what you were taught. We step into the forgotten corners of human consciousness, where 5 cultures wrestled with the same eternal questions. What is the price of knowledge? What separates gods from mortals? And when the universe demands a sacrifice, who decides what must be given? From the volcanic islands of Japan to the sun-baked deserts of Maui, from the frozen peaks of the Andes to the dense jungles of the Philippines, from the star-swept plains of Aboriginal Australia, these are the myths that shaped civilizations and then disappeared into shadow. Each story is a key. Each myth unlocks something ancient inside you. And by the time we reach the end, you will understand why these legends were hidden, why they were too powerful to be remembered, and why you were always meant to find them. The first myth begins where all myths must begin, with the creation of death itself. In the beginning, before death existed, 2 gods descended from the heavens to create the world. Izanagi and Izanami, the male and the female, the beginning and the not yet end. Together they stirred the primordial ocean with a jeweled spear, and where the drops fell, islands formed. They walked across these islands, and where they walked, forests grew. They spoke words of power, and mountains rose from the earth like the bones of sleeping giants. They created rivers. They created storms. They created the sun and moon and all the gods who would rule them. And then Izanami gave birth to fire. The flames tore through her divine body, burning her from the inside out. She screamed, a sound that shattered the sky itself. And then she died, the first death, the original wound in the fabric of creation. Izanagi could not accept this. He descended into Yomi, the land of the dead, a place of eternal shadow where even the gods feared to walk. He called out to her in the darkness. He begged her to return, and she answered. "My beloved," her voice echoed from the depths. "I have already eaten the food of the underworld. I cannot return." But Izanagi would not listen. "Show yourself to me," he demanded. "Let me see you one last time." "Do not look at me," Izanami warned. "I am not what I was, but grief makes fools of even gods." Izanagi lit a torch, and in that terrible light, he saw what his wife had become. Her flesh was rotting, falling from her bones. Maggots crawled through her eye sockets. 8 thunder gods writhed beneath her skin, feeding on her decay. She was no longer the goddess of creation. She had become death itself. Izanami screamed, not in sorrow, but in rage. "You have shamed me. You have seen what should never be seen." She sent the demons of Yomi to hunt him. Izanagi ran, hurling his belongings behind him. His headdress became grapes to distract them. His comb became bamboo shoots. He barely escaped, sealing the entrance to the underworld with a massive boulder. From behind the stone, Izanami's voice rang out, cold and final. "Every day, I will take 1,000 of your people to join me in death." Izanagi shouted back. "Then every day, I will create 1,500 more." And so, the cycle began. Life and death, locked in eternal battle. One goddess cursed humanity because her husband saw her shame. One god condemned us to endless reproduction because he could not let her go. But the strangest part is what happens next in cultures half a world away. Before humans had stories, the sky god Niame owned them all. Every tale, every song, every piece of wisdom that could be spoken. They were locked in a golden box at the center of the sky, and Niame guarded them jealously. The world was silent. History could not be remembered. Children could not dream. But there was one creature clever enough to steal the impossible. Anansi the spider, small, eight-legged, seemingly powerless. But Anansi understood something the gods did not. That intelligence is the ultimate power, and that even the smallest creature can reshape the cosmos if it knows the right trick. Anansi climbed the silver thread that connected earth to sky. He bowed before Niame and said, "Great God, I wish to purchase your stories." Niame laughed. "Many have asked, all have failed. The price for my stories is 4 impossible things. Bring me Onini the python who swallows goats whole, Osebo the leopard with teeth like daggers, the Moboro hornets whose sting brings madness, and Moatia, the invisible fairy whom no one has ever captured." "I accept," Anansi said. For the python, Anansi cut a long branch and argued with himself loudly near the river. "My wife says you are shorter than this branch," he shouted, "but I say you are longer." The vain python stretched himself along the branch to prove his length, and Anansi tied him there. For the leopard, Anansi dug a deep pit and covered it with branches. When Osebo fell in, Anansi offered to help him climb out using a bent tree as a ladder. But the tree was a trap. It snapped and left the leopard dangling helpless in the air. For the hornets, Anansi filled a gourd with water and poured some on the hornet's nest, then poured the rest on himself. "The storm is coming," he cried. "Shelter in my gourd." The hornets swarmed inside, and Anansi sealed it. For the fairy, Anansi carved a wooden doll and covered it with sticky tree sap, then placed a bowl of yams before it. When Moatia came and asked for food, the doll did not answer. Insulted, the fairy struck the doll and became stuck fast. Anansi brought all 4 impossible things to Niame. The sky god stared in disbelief. "You are smaller than my thumb, yet you have done what warriors and kings could not. The stories are yours." Anansi took the golden box and opened it. Every story flew out like birds, spreading across the world, landing in the mouths of humans who suddenly remembered how to speak their own histories. But here is what the myth never tells you directly. Anansi did not keep the stories for himself. He gave them away, because he understood that stories are not meant to be possessed. They are meant to be weapons, tools, seeds planted in the minds of the powerless so they can overthrow the powerful. The third myth takes us to the edge of the world, where the sun itself can be held captive. The sun was running wild across the sky. Each day it raced from horizon to horizon so fast that crops could not grow, fish could not be caught, and humans lived in a twilight world where nothing could be finished before darkness fell. Maui, the trickster demigod, watched his mother struggle to dry her sheets in the few minutes of sunlight each day. And he decided to do what no god or human had ever attempted. He would catch the sun, he would chain it, he would beat it into submission. His brothers laughed. "The sun is a god," they said. "You cannot fight a god." But Maui had already fought gods. He had fished entire islands from the ocean floor using a magic hook made from his grandmother's jawbone. He had stolen fire from the underworld. He feared nothing because he understood that the universe responds only to audacity. Maui traveled to the edge of the world where the sun emerged each dawn. He brought with him ropes woven from his sister's sacred hair, the strongest material in existence. He and his brothers dug pits and hid, waiting. When the sun rose, arrogant and blazing, Maui threw 16 lassos at once. Each one caught a ray of sunlight, and suddenly the sun was trapped, bound, pulled down from the sky like a wild horse. The sun screamed in rage. Its heat intensified. The ground turned to glass. The brothers cried out to retreat, but Maui stood firm. He raised his weapon, a club made from the jawbone of his divine ancestor, and he beat the sun. Over and over he struck it. "You will slow down," Maui roared. "You will obey." The sun, humiliated, weakened, finally agreed. From that day forward, it would cross the sky slowly, giving humans enough light to live by. Maui released the ropes. The sun limped across the sky, tamed but not destroyed, and humanity was given time itself as a gift. But here is what the myth teaches in its bones: that some prisons are necessary, that even the gods must be chained for civilization to exist, and that rebellion against cosmic order is sometimes the only moral choice. The fourth myth comes from mountains so high the air itself becomes sacred. In the beginning, 4 brothers and 4 sisters emerged from a cave called Pakaritambo, the House of Dawn. They were the Ayar siblings, sent by the sun god Inti to find the place where a sacred golden staff would sink into the earth. There, they would build an empire. But this is not a story about destiny fulfilled. This is a story about the price of becoming a foundation. The siblings traveled together, each with divine gifts. Ayar Kachi possessed strength that could move mountains. Ayar Uchu could communicate with stones and rivers. Ayar Auka had the speed of wind itself. And Ayar Manco, the youngest, carried the golden staff. But Ayar Kachi's power was too great. His voice caused avalanches. His footsteps split the earth. The other siblings grew afraid, not of enemies, but of their own brother. They tricked him. They told him to return to the cave to retrieve sacred seeds they had forgotten. And when he entered, they sealed the entrance with a massive boulder, trapping him forever inside the mountain. His screams echoed through the Andes, but they kept walking. Next, Ayar Uchu stopped at a sacred shrine. He planted his feet and declared, "I will stay here and speak to the gods on behalf of the people." But as he spoke, his body began to transform. His flesh hardened into stone. He became a huaca, a sacred monument that could never move again. 2 brothers down, 2 remained. Ayar Auka volunteered next. "I will fly ahead and find the perfect place," he said. He spread wings that grew from his shoulders and soared into the sky. But as he flew, his wings froze mid-flight. He too became stone, an eternal marker pointing toward the promised land. Only Ayar Manco remained. He reached the valley of Cusco. He drove the golden staff into the earth, and it sank deep, claiming the land. But he was alone. His brothers had not died. They had become the sacred stones, the pillars, the very foundation upon which the Incan Empire would be built. Each had sacrificed their freedom so that a civilization could rise. And Ayar Manco understood. Leadership is not about glory. It is about being the last one standing, carrying the weight of all who were sacrificed to get you there. The final myth takes us to the oldest continent, where the first humans learned to read the stars. In the dream time, before time was divided into days and nights, there were 7 sisters who knew the secrets of creation. They carried sacred knowledge, how to heal, how to read the land, how to survive in a world that was still being sung into existence. They were beautiful, powerful, and free. But there was a hunter who wanted to possess them. His name was Watiniru, and he was consumed by desire. He followed the sisters across the earth, tracking them through deserts and mountains, crossing rivers and canyons, never stopping, never resting. The sisters ran. They used their magic to transform the landscape, creating water holes to slow him down, splitting rocks to hide their trail. But no matter what they did, the hunter followed. They were not running from love. They were running from the kind of obsession that destroys everything it touches. Finally, exhausted, knowing they could never be safe on earth, the 7 sisters called out to the sky, and the sky answered. They rose up, higher and higher, until they became stars, the constellation we now call the Pleiades. But the hunter did not give up. He too transformed, becoming Orion, the constellation that eternally chases the seven sisters across the night sky. Every night you can see them, the sisters fleeing, the hunter pursuing, forever frozen in the moment of escape that never ends. The Aboriginal people say this myth teaches us that some pursuits must be abandoned, that consent cannot be stolen, and that the stars themselves remember every act of violation. And when you look up at the night sky, you are not just seeing distant suns, you are seeing a warning written in fire across the universe. 5 myths, 5 cultures, 5,000 miles between them. But notice the pattern. Each myth is about a boundary being crossed. Each one involves a price that must be paid. And in every case, the gods or heroes gain something profound, but they lose something irreplaceable in the process. Izanami gained immortality in legend, but lost her humanity the moment her husband saw her true form. The myth teaches that shame is not inherent. It is created by the gaze of others, and that privacy is sacred even between lovers. Anansi gained all the stories in the world, but understood they meant nothing if hoarded. The myth teaches that knowledge without distribution is worthless, and that the smallest among us can redistribute power if they are clever enough. Maui gained control over time itself, but only through violence against a god. The myth teaches that progress requires rebellion, that the natural order is not always just, and that sometimes the only way forward is through holy defiance. The Ayar siblings gained an empire, but 3 of them became literal stones, prisoners of their own destiny. The myth teaches that every civilization is built on the bodies of those who were sacrificed, often willingly, and that foundations require transformation so complete it resembles death. The 7 sisters gained eternal freedom in the stars, but lost the earth forever. The myth teaches that escape is sometimes the only form of justice, and that survival can look like running, and running is sacred. Here is the unifying truth beneath all 5 myths. Transformation is always violent, always costly, always irreversible. You cannot become who you are meant to be without killing who you used to be. The gods understood this. Every culture that created these myths understood this, but we have forgotten. We want transformation without sacrifice. We want wisdom without the journey. We want to be reborn without dying first. These myths are telling you that is not how it works. The universe demands payment. The question is whether you will pay the price consciously, with intention, or whether it will be extracted from you when you are not looking. So, what does this mean for you, here, now, in a world that has forgotten its own mythology? It means you are living inside one of these stories right now. You are Izanami, hiding the parts of yourself you believe are shameful, terrified that if anyone sees the real you, they will run. But the myth whispers, the shame is not in being seen, it is in believing you must be perfect to be loved. You are Anansi, sitting on knowledge, skills, gifts you have never shared because you are afraid they are not valuable enough. But the myth whispers, the stories you carry are not yours to keep. They are meant to liberate others, and only in giving them away do they become powerful. You are Maui, staring at systems that seem too vast to challenge, governments, corporations, cultural expectations that move as fast and mercilessly as the sun. But the myth whispers, audacity is a weapon, and one person with a plan can chain the impossible if they refuse to accept the world as it is. You are the Ayar siblings, watching people around you sacrifice their dreams so that you can build yours. But the myth whispers, honor the stones upon which you stand, because leadership without gratitude is just theft wearing a crown. You are the 7 sisters, running from something that will not stop chasing you. An addiction, a trauma, a person, a version of yourself you cannot seem to escape. But the myth whispers, sometimes running is not cowardice. Sometimes it is the only way to survive long enough to transform. The ancient world gave us these myths as tools, as maps, as mirrors. They were never meant to be entertainment. They were meant to be instructions for how to live when the universe asks you to pay a price you are not sure you can afford. And the deepest truth of all, you will pay it anyway. The only choice you have is whether you will pay it with awareness, with purpose, with the knowledge that every sacrifice contains a seed of divinity, or whether you will pay it blindly, bitterly, never understanding that you are always part of a larger story. These myths were hidden from you not because they were weak, but because they were too powerful. They teach you that gods are not perfect. They are flawed, desperate, violent, and often wrong. They teach you that the universe does not care about your comfort. It cares about your transformation. They teach you that death and rebirth are not metaphors. They are the only way forward. And now that you know these stories, you cannot unknow them. They will work on you in the dark. They will change how you see your own struggles. They will whisper to you when you are faced with impossible choices, because myths do not ask permission. They invade, they possess, they transform. And that is exactly what they were designed to do. Somewhere in Japan, a goddess still waits behind a stone, taking 1,000 souls each day. Somewhere in West Africa, a spider still laughs at the gods who thought they could own wisdom. Somewhere in Polynesia, the sun still remembers the ropes and the beating and moves slower because it learned to fear a mortal. Somewhere in the Andes, 3 brothers stand frozen as stones, holding up an empire that has long since crumbled. Somewhere in Australia, 7 sisters still run across the night sky, and a hunter still follows, and neither will ever stop. And somewhere inside you, these myths have taken root. You are no longer the person who began watching this video. You are someone who knows that transformation requires death, that power can be redistributed by the clever, that even the sun can be chained, that foundations are built on sacrifice, and that running can be sacred. The forgotten gods have been remembered, the hidden legends have been spoken, and you are now a carrier of their fire. The universe is watching to see what you will do with it. Do not waste this knowledge. Subscribe to Mythic Tales for more stories like this.